Welcome everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Brittingham and Friends. I want to say it's good to be sitting back in the captain's chair once again. I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in to us for the last 3 or 4 months, because we still try to bring you community affairs and important issues. So first and foremost, I want to thank, in order here, I want to thank Ms. Liz Allen. We all know Ms. Liz Allen. She's a community activist, particularly in health care. But during the primary season of the election, she hosted a political show for us, and Thomas Gordon was the executive, he was the guest, and he ended up winning the office of Newcastle County Executive Director. I also want to thank my good buddy, Mr. John Flaherty. He hosted a couple shows concerning the Port of Wilmington, where Port of Wilmington was a different company down there was trying to privatize it, so we advocated against that. Mr. John Flaherty was the lobbyist for the union down to Port of Wilmington. And I also want to give a shout out to the union down to Port of Wilmington for standing up so strong and fighting that issue, and other groups besides the NAACP in the community was active on that situation. Also, I want to thank Mr. Lonnie Edwards. Lonnie Edwards did a show, and we did a show on the homeless. And we found out then that the NAACP is working with Delaware's homeless to write a homeless bill of rights. Let me say that again, a homeless bill of rights. And what we're trying to do on that situation is any crime committed against a homeless person, we want to make that a hate crime. So there's a lot of stuff we got to work on that's coming out, and we're doing some things. And a lot of these deadlines are May 1st, so we're working on a lot of stuff. I also want to thank my good buddy, he's also my vice president of the Wilmington branch NAACP, Mr. Charles Linwood Jackson. We all know him as Linwood. He hosted a program on cultural affairs on a play, not only just on a play, but a play that he was in called Ragtime. And that was a very successful play. It was done very professionally. It aired a couple times in different community venues around town. And he's with me today. And today's topic is education. Today's subject is the Christina School District. I want to say that Councilman Jay Street was supposed to be with us here today, but his schedule was conflicted at the very last moment. So Jay, we're going to schedule you at another time. He knows that. We're going to talk about some of the issues that he's been fighting, NAACP's been fighting, and that you've been fighting for a long time in our educational system. So without further ado, as they say on the big time, and we think we are big time, I'm going to introduce my co-host for the day, Mr. Linwood Jackson. I call him Linwood. He's also the vice president of the NAACP Wilmington branch. And Linwood, I want to once again thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on today's program and help me co-host today's program on such an important message we're going to try to get out today on education.
Well, thanks again, Britt. I'm very happy to be here with you as always, and I did enjoy the time that you gave me to host this show. I actually brought with me the director of that particular show, Jeff Santoro, who is the director of Ragtime, the musical, and he joined me, as well as another gentleman who was an actor in that play, Mr. Alfred Lance Jr., and he played the part of Booker T. Washington, a historical figure back in American history. And it's interesting. Then we were talking about education as pertains to the cultural arts, and how Wilmington and Delaware is full of cultural arts. A lot of big entertainers made it big around the world. Came from our schools here in Wilmington and in Delaware, and I'm proud to have been a part of that program, and to share and shed the light on some of the schools that are available to our young people here in Delaware, and Wilmington is specific. We have a rich, broad educational. We have a lot of theaters, the Wilmington Drama League, the Cultural Arts Center, the DuPont company, the Queens, you know, it's fascinating to me, the opportunities that are available to our kids to take advantage of, and for free. A lot of these classes are free. They teach them about the arts. You know, everything is about education. You need to know math and have reading skills, to play music and all of that. So I was happy to have shared this platform that you gave us with Jeff and Alfred at that time. And as you know, today, you know, we're still talking about education today. And so it's in the news big time. And we are joined today by our guest, who happens to be a program, a Delaware program coordinator for the tutor program from A to Z in-home tutoring. Former. She served as the former Delaware program coordinator. She has also served as the director of Information Assurance Center at the Westchester University of Pennsylvania. And she was appointed to the Red Clay Educational Channel's advisory board. She's also a community education advocate and who is committed to serving and advancing the agendas that encourage diverse approaches and perspectives in the pursuit of educational excellence. This young lady has so many titles to name. I think she has more than Borders books. So she's here to join us. I'm glad that she's here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Denise Spanish. Denise, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me on, Mr. Brittingham.
Thank you for coming.
Linwood, thank you so much for inviting me to talk about these issues today concerning the school districts, particularly the Christina School District, and what's going on with Mr. Street and all of the dilemmas there. So I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Yeah, and like we said off camera, this is, unfortunately, this is a situation in education that's been going on for years and years and years. And you know, one of the, the very first resolution the NAACP made back in 1909 was on education.
Wow.
And we thought, and we still think it, we thought that if we, the community, had an education, that would be part of our stepping stone to move up the ladder as far as getting good jobs. We can, you know, be entrepreneurs, you know, but you have to understand to get a good education. So that was the very first thing. And it's just amazing to me that we're still fighting some of these same issues. It just goes to show you we haven't moved that far.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And you have a guest with you.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I wanted to stay on point here. I have with me my fiance, Tyrone Robinson. He supports me in all these endeavors and various things that I participate in, which I do get involved in a lot of things inside the community and outside of the community. As I mentioned, outside in the green room, I'm not only involved in educational issues here in Delaware, but as well as in Pennsylvania. So he backs me up and supports me and helps me get where I have to get to in terms of transportation as well. So Tyrone Robinson, go ahead and
thank you very much.
greet the people.
Thank you. I just thank God for another beautiful day, and I'm glad to be here. To be this is real serious matter, and we need to take this a priority one, first class matter. And I'm just going to say something really brief. We don't have to like the person to agree with the person. I think that we have every time we don't like a person, our brain gets narrower and narrower and narrower, and it doesn't have no room for anything else positive to get in, unless it's negative. And like I said, we don't have to like the person to agree with the person, but we need to treat this matter like we was campaigning this summer. Everybody's going wholeheartedly for campaign and such and such and such and such. But if we don't act like this is number one priority, we're going to leave these kids behind for real. You know, the kids are our future. We keep talking about that we care about these kids and education. It's time to just step up and show it and do something about it, like we're trying to do today as well. And I just want everybody to if you're not going to do something about it, don't talk about it.
There you go.
Well, you're
Thank you very much.
right.
There
You're
you go.
absolutely right.
My phrase is, if you can't step up, don't speak up.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I wanted to just add the issue that we're speaking of specifically is the article that was in the paper. It came out, I guess, on March 30th, Saturday, March 30th. And the title of the article was "The Board Takes Umbrage Over Street's Letter." And it appears that the Christina School District or the school board, members of the school board felt attacked or felt offended by a letter that Mr. Street evidently sent to them in reference to some of the issues that exist in the Christina School District. And he kind of outlined those issues in his letter. And somewhere in the letter also, he specifically requested some resignations. And I guess people felt up in arms about that, and as a result, they are now going to institute security at all of the board meetings, which in my opinion is fine. I mean, and security in and of itself, just to have at the board meetings, no problem. We should have been had that. I mean, the world is changing, a lot of things are happening, but to imply that Mr. Street would show up at a board meeting to attack or harm or beat up or jump on board members in relationship to issues about our children, I think was a bit far-fetched.
Well, they try, in my opinion, the school board is trying to get members on their side of the fence who don't know Mr. Street well to automatically get mad with him. And the thing of it is, Mr. Street's been involved with youth for years and years and years in this community and surrounding communities on furthering their education. But as a matter of fact, he's a director of a youth center, of a community center.
Exactly.
Hilltop.
The Hilltop.
And he is rather a Newcastle councilman.
Yes.
So why would they think he would lose his job for going to acting simple?
In other words, he's doing his job.
Exactly.
Doing his job, speaking up, advocating for the kids, and it's akin to shooting the messenger.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're going to kill the guy that's delivering the right message over. And Britt, you brought up an important. You said something important just a minute ago about the history. The NAACP been fighting this for well over 100 years. You and I know that not only the educational issue, the housing and the health care issue, but to me, I think it all stems around education. And since you went back in history, I just want to go a little bit further than 100 years and hit, for over 400 years during the dark periods of slavery in American history, we've been denied the opportunity to get an education. It was a time in American history for over 400 years during this time where if you were caught reading or writing, you would be hung, strung, separated from your families, and just all kinds of horrific punishments. And on that note, we're only 150 years from the Emancipation Proclamation that was signed into law, freeing the slaves. But they took the chains off of our ankles, and then it seems as though that they put the chains on our brains at that time. The chains are on our brains now. Now it's time we need to remove those chains and open up and get some education, learn something. I think that started. They called that the Jim Crow era.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is, our guest here, Mr. Johnson, said it perfectly. If we can't get behind this, we can't get behind nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, because. Any issue that NAACP has more than any other group that's out there, no matter where we throw that dark on the board, wherever it lands, it's a hot issue. Healthcare, environmental issues, domestic violence, crime, it's a hot issue, right? So we all have to come and we have to pick and choose our fights, right? And when we pick the fight that we're going to fight, we got to stick with it till we either win it or we lose it, big time, right? And if this is not a situation where you sitting home as a parent, don't want to get involved because there are some things you got to do to get involved. I mean, let's face it, right? And you don't want no repercussions and all that. Well, we can take care of repercussions too. That's another situation, another story. But think about this: if we all live, to be in our ripe old ages, the four of us sitting on this panel right now, right? The kids we're talking about, if they don't have an education, they can't take care of me. They won't even know what bottle of medicine to give me if they can't read or write. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I mean, think about that. If they need to know what's going on.
Yes.
If we cannot compete locally, ladies and gentlemen, we will never compete globally. Never.
You got that right.
Oh, and I have something I wanted to interject on your comment about parents getting involved. I work with a program in Chester now where we work with some children, and we actually watched a movie this week called The Children's March. And it was specifically about Martin Luther King's movement back in the early 60s and all of the things that they were doing, going to jail, sit-ins, the marches and everything. But the topic of the movie was really emphasizing the children's involvement. And when I say children, I specifically mean children.
That's right.
From 10 years old up until 18 years old, the children got involved. And the reason why was because the parents, you know, they had to work, and if they got involved, some of them would lose their homes, their cars, their jobs back at that time. That's the way things were.
They shut schools down. The kids left
Yes.
schools.
Yes, they did.
And hundreds of kids. They just jumped out windows and stuff. They just left schools to go support this effort. And some of them now are advocating, you know, or activists now.
And so I brought that up to say that I don't want the children listening to feel like this is an adult issue and I can't get involved. You can get involved. As a matter of fact, I heard that Fred Green is now heading up a children's or a youth group, advocacy group under Mayor Williams for the city of Wilmington. I would say contact Mr. Fred Green. He just announced on Facebook that he was going to be the leader of that group, and I congratulated him. I don't know all the details. I don't know what their agenda is, but I'm quite sure that he would be more than willing to formulate the younger people and get them involved. So I just want people to understand children can be involved, adults can be involved, anybody can be involved in these issues. Don't feel like, oh, well, this is too big for me or something that I can't. You have a part to play.
And the part to play is all of us had this experience at one time or another because we all out there doing something for the community, is that when you're in a meeting and we talk about what the youth got to do, and you look around the meeting and there's no youth. So we need the youth in the room to get their perspective. We can guide them because that's what our experience is supposed to be about. We can guide them to make sure they're going down the right path, but they have some great ideas as well.
And I believe that's what's contributing to the dropout rate. We aren't listening to them. When you have a 60% dropout rate, I was just reading in the paper today, Mayor Williams and Tom Gordon are partnering, I guess you would say, to put some pressure on the leaders of the school districts to address the dropout rate, not only in Wilmington, but throughout Newcastle County. And, you know, if you really want to know what's going on, we need to go talk to the children. We need to go talk to the students who are dropping out and finding out what their challenges are.
Right.
Why did you just stop coming to school? You were there for 2 months at the beginning of the year. We didn't see you for the other 8 months. And that means that we're going to have to put on our sneakers, we're going to have to put on our jog suits, and we're going to have to go knock on doors and talk to people and find out what's going on. Why did you drop out? What's going on in your life? What's happening? And collect that data and try to make some sense of it. It's my understanding that they've just contracted Maurice Pridgeon, according to the article. They're giving him $21,000 to get started with that effort.
And he's a good man.
Yes.
You know, he's been in education ever since I've known him since, well, he graduated a class before me, but he's been in education for a long time. You know,
Wow.
and he knows what's going on. So.
I support him. If there's anything I can do, Mr. Pridgeon, let me know.
I just want to piggyback off what you said. It's not the adults that's trying to make this happen and make this work. We need the teenagers, the kids as well. You know what I mean? Because we're all in this together. You know, and like back in my day, I never thought that I would say back in my day, but now it done caught up with me. But I know if you miss 1 day or 2 days from school, somebody was knocking on your door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody was knocking on your door. It wasn't no run up the steps and all that and hide or tell them you ain't here. Because nowadays the kids can tell the parents what to say and what to do, and they'll do it.
Yeah.
I wish I would have told my dad or my mom what to say or what to do. You know what I mean? I can't believe how much power they got over the parents.
Well,
this is a different
truant
topic.
officer really took his job
Yeah,
seriously.
yes, and I'm saying, what happened to it? I mean, what actually really happened to it? And we need to either bring it back to life. They say it's still around, but I haven't heard.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but I think that should be brought up in this discussion too as well, and be mandated that if a kid is missing 1 day or 2 days, somebody got to be knocking at the door and want to know what's going on, because it might be something at home that we need to know about. You know what I mean? That we take it for granted. Why he's not coming to school, or such and such. But I'm saying that's what I think that we need.
It could be an abuse problem at home. It could be anything.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think you're talking about parental responsibility, and you know, the kids have to take responsibility
As well.
for their own education as well. They're old enough to know by now that they need to stay in school and do what they need to do to survive in this world today. However, I think it may be a deeper issue behind what's going on now. You know, we can take all the responsibility for our kids and our actions as we want, but you know, we're talking about history throughout history. You know, it wasn't so long ago when this Jim Crow era business was going on in the United States, all the way up until 1965 before we got rid of that one there. There were laws that was practiced that led to the conditions of African Americans that tended to make them to make us inferior. You see, leading to a number of economic, educational, and social disadvantages that we see in our society today. Segregation in housing, segregation in bank lending, for an example, practices, and these discriminations were going on for decades. There's only, I think we're 60 years from Brown versus Board of Education. Where the decision to put America on the path towards equality with as it pertains to the separate but equal doctrine. So, you know, and today I think you might want to speak a little bit on, Denise, about what's going on at the board and what they did. I think J Street had a study going on, for an example. For years ago he started it, and come to find out now that, what he thought was true, that they were disproportionately kicking our kids out of school for no reason, and that would lead to you know, a kid dropping out, for an example. It's like they don't encourage them when we're disproportionately targeted, and throughout history we know that this has happened. It's just a fact, and that's what the study was behind, what J Street was doing.
Yes, what Linwood is referring to, there was an article that came out in the paper in December where the Christina School District had been cited for harsh treatment of African American students in terms of suspensions and expulsions. And that's what's kind of leading to what's going on today with the board meetings where they don't want Mr. Street to show up and what have you. But nonetheless, Mr. Street actually followed this issue carefully. He filed the charges, I guess you would say, like 8 years ago, and it finally, like in December,
yeah, they're looking at
the
it.
results came out, and the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Education actually founded the Christina School District, I guess, guilty of these things. So that contributes to the dropout rate, and these kinds of things are the things that Mr. Street and other leaders, not just Mr. Street, there are other leaders out there as well, but Mr. Street just happens to be the person that they want to throw darts at and they want to vilify. But nonetheless, it's a sad situation, and it's really a shameful situation, in my opinion, because the Christina School District has had black leaders, or African American leaders, whatever you want to call them, for decades. To be cited with this type of a thing is a little bit shameful, in my opinion.
But you know, the proof is in the pudding. You know, we do have substantial obstacles to equal educational opportunities that still remain here in American society today, and that's proof positive with this survey that came out. The J Street didn't do this. He had other people doing it. It was outside of the state of Delaware, performed these surveys, and they came back and found that they were guilty. And so instead of correcting the situation and rectifying it, they're just going to shoot the messenger. And so, you know, in the paper, Denise stated today, there's in the news today that our mayor, Dennis Williams, and Newcastle County Executive Tom Gordon have come together and they're addressing it. They're stepping up, and we appreciate it. That's what we need. Our politicians, we need our religious leaders in our religious community. We need our civil rights leaders, the educational advocates, everybody professing to work with our kids need to step up and stand behind this initiative to address what's going on in the Colonial School District, because it's just a fact. Christina School District, actually all the school districts need to be held accountable. And we can check on them all. The Christina School District just the one on top right now.
Right.
Because the obstacles still remain here. Lack of access to highly effective teachers and principals, the safe schools. We don't, the disproportionate experience, disciplinary actions are just disproportionate in referrals to special education. There's something wrong, there's something over there. As opposed to encouraging and sending them somewhere they need help, like with tutoring programs that Ms. Spanish was heading not long ago, to come into the homes and work with these kids where they have these special problems. These are the type of actions that we can be taking to rectify this issue. And instead of shooting the messenger, we need to help him. And what do you think we need to do? Get off the armchairs and get out there and do something. And there are things we can do, like there's laws, for an example. In the state of Delaware, it blows my mind. I don't understand it at all. Been talking about it all year on the Brit show the last time we were on, that allows our children to quit school at 16 years old. Think about that. There's good laws and bad laws. One law, if we, as parents, we had to put our kids in the school in the first grade. That's a great law. Everybody knows they need to be educated. We keep them there. We're obligated to feed them, clothe them, house them, help them with their homework, give them everything they need to go through school. And then in the 10th grade, 2 years shy of a high school diploma, the basic education they need to survive in this world, okay, son, daughter, you can quit now. That is just crazy. And I know for a fact there's some people out there that believe that that's all right. Well, I agree that if a kid is in school acting out in class, I do agree that he needs to be removed from that class. Maybe placed somewhere else so we can get some special attention. Who knows? Maybe he has some mental health issues or whatever, like was mentioned earlier. Maybe he's not eating at home. Maybe he doesn't even have a home. We don't know, but we know he's acting out, and that's the one that needs the attention, and we can give it to him. But what we don't want to do is kick them out of school.
Right.
Because all they doing, that just puts them back into the community where they came from, our communities.
To wreak havoc.
And they wreak havoc.
And and they're wreaking havoc because they don't know better. Okay, I'm going through my changes. I'm ticked off with the world. I have a problem with authority figures.
Yes.
So I'm leaving under this law. You guys do the same thing. We don't even know each other. But somewhere in the community we hook up. And you know what? We get to talking to each other. We get to become real good friends because my parents at home don't understand me. Oh, my parents don't understand me, but me and you understand each other. That's their thinking. Okay, and that's how gangs are formed.
Yes, sir.
They get back into our community, and instead of us providing them the education and resources that they need, we throw guns in the community. We throw drugs in the community. And when I say we, I don't mean, of course, I'm saying the society is placing, instead of society placing an emphasis on education and giving them all they need to get that, we got drugs and all this here stuff here, and now they can't get a job, so what do? They sell these drugs here. They need to feed their families. It's the domino effect. They end up in the jailhouse system, and our community is just going haywire as a result of our young men and women that run around here with their clothes hanging down here, wreaking havoc on our communities. You see, and that's what's the root of all the evil that's going on out there now. So I do commend Mayor Williams and the Newcastle County Child Gordon, J Street, and all of the other people that are standing up and trying to keep our kids in school by any means necessary. It's just the bottom line. Jim Crow, there are people out there raising their evil heads, trying to stop this because they know that educated person is a strong person. They're going to raise. Actually, all America benefits from all our kids educated. You know, it just lifts up the whole society. And these Jim Crow types, I call them. You know, Jim Crow died a long time ago. We got rid of him, but he's been replaced. He ain't gone. He's been replaced. He's been replaced by Attorney Anthony Crow. For an example, we got Reverend Ronnie Crow out there preaching this stuff, and we have educators out there, believe it or not, Mr. Dennis Crow or whoever. And I don't take those names. I don't want to come back and get sued or nothing. But hypothetically speaking, there are people out there that still believe in this doctrine. They kick them out of school for whatever reason instead of working with them. It goes back through the slavery days. There, they didn't want you educated then, and they don't. A lot of people don't want us educated now. We call it chain on the brain. And we are here to break that chain and then replace that with some education, and it just behooves all of us to fall behind the leaders out there who are working towards getting that done. And Denise said it eloquently when there was a Christina School District out there that they were wrong. So just fix it. That's all. There's no problem. And if you don't want to do your jobs, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Just quit. Get off the board. If you don't want to work and do your job, it's just, if I go to work, I don't do my job, what happens?
You get fired.
You know what I'm saying? If we don't do it, so if you're don't want to let somebody else step up there, the bottom line, we got to get our kids educated, and the call to action is, I'd like to see tomorrow, that everybody getting up. Dennis, we got the paper here, did a great job, good job, and just keep it up. And they need all city council, and the reverend community, religious communities, everybody out there who has anything to say about advocating for our kids need to stand up right now, unified and together, and get this initiative done so that we can move on to the next issue. It's the domino effect.
Well, it's not. You're absolutely, it's a domino effect, and it's many parts to this situation. This is ground zero. I like to call the situation we're talking about, and the next stage is make sure our education system is teaching them a good curriculum, not just throwing something out there just to get in my day we used to call it social promotion.
Yes.
I don't want you in my class. You're acting up. I'll pass you just to get you out of my class. Mm-hmm. And by the time you graduate, you can't even fill out a job resume application because you can't spell, you can't do anything.
We see that.
Right?
We already see that.
And that's what I'm talking about. So, there's a lot of parts to this thing, but this is ground zero. Mm-hmm. And everything we talked about so far is, a lot of adults, it was top heavy with adults, but our youth as well has to get on board.
Yes.
They have to talk to other youth too and say, hey man, come on, it's time for us to stop acting simple. Mm-hmm. And let me give you a quick example.
Peer pressure.
Pressure. Well, I like pressure, as you may know. Pressure makes diamonds.
Out of court. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I told you this story before or not. When my son was going to Salesianum School, and we went there a couple weeks before school was opening, this is like his 12th grade, to get his classes.
Okay.
Find out what's going on, how many credits you still need, all that kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
And we're sitting out in the hallway. It's a Saturday. We're sitting in the hallway. Mm-hmm. Us and another family, another black family. And inside, talking to the guidance counselor was a single mother. And I know that because she said she was single, talking to the guidance counselor. And her son.
Okay.
Her son was in the same graduating class as my son.
Okay.
But he's sitting there, and the guidance counselor was saying, we got to change his curriculum because, he barely made it from the 11th grade to the 12th grade. And, that stuff is too hard for him, and we need to put him back. And, and the mother's going, yeah, I'm working 2 jobs. There is no father in the house. I'm doing the best I can. I don't have time to keep coming up here. I want to make sure he's in school. Mm-hmm. Now, the kid wasn't skipping school, and he was just goofing off.
Okay.
I found out that he only needed something like 35 credits to graduate.
Okay.
Right? And before, my wife and I could say something to the mother when the guidance counselor left the room, my son talked to this boy.
Okay.
My son said, hey, you're clowning around. 35 credits you can do standing on your head. You spent 12 years now and you got 1 more year to go. Mm-hmm. He said, now stop playing around. Because, he was good in football. So, well, you're never going to, you need something other than sports in case you break your leg the first day in sports, He said, but you're clowning around, 35 points. And they were, and if I'm lying, I'm flying. They was going to give him classes like archery, things that you can just barely pass. I mean, you can pass.
You can pass, but
And my
what
son was
does that
talking to
gonna
him
do
from
for you?
another youth to another youth, and I'm going like, wow, when did he grow up? My son, right? But he's been listening to us.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Kicked in.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's imagine that one particular guidance counselor that was a one-on-one with a student. Imagine that across this country. That's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of students being told, you can't do this.
Yes. And that's the beauty of getting the youth involved, because they talk the language of their peers. And you know when they are slacking and not applying themselves. And let the truth be known, the youth today are brilliant, in my opinion.
Yes, they are.
They are smart as a whip. It's not really too much you can put in front of them that they can't figure out, that they don't understand. So it's not because they can't do the work. It's not because they can't get it. It's something else going on.
How many times have you heard you have trouble with your computer at home?
I started to bring that up.
And the youth says, you got to go in the back door. What are you talking about?
I started to bring that up.
Think about this. In the Desert Storm War, the jet planes that we were using, the joysticks they were using, was the first time our young pilots seen that. But the average pilot that went in the Desert Storm used to play video games with with a stick,
Right.
a joystick, and they became great pilots. Years ago, you guys may remember this because we're all local people. A DJ out of Philadelphia, what was his name? You had Georgie Woods, and you had, what's the other guy? Jocko.
Okay.
Jocko made a record about 15 years ago on education, and he rhymed it. And today you would say it was like hip hop, but he rhymed it,
Right.
and the kids caught on to it. He said, "You got it." If I sung it straight out, they would say,
Yeah,
but
what's
they
that?
liked the beat first. Then they understood what he was saying. Hey,
Word
this
for
is a-
word.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I really don't care how the kids get their education, but playing games, like you said, with the Air Force actually use those games now to fly planes and
Absolutely.
practice before they get in a real plane. You know,
Simulation.
some of these rap artists, I'm reminded of music therapy or music on my mind. You know, good music goes along. You can heal lives and souls with good music.
Yes.
And it's universal.
And the opposite effect holds true as well. You got bad music out there that does damage to the brain. Whatever you put in your system is what comes out of your system. Unfortunately, right now, I believe, my personal opinion, that like some of this rap is like bad rap. And these kids are catering to it, and they listen to it, and they go out there and they B's and H's and run around here like they out of their mind listening to some of these songs, these rap songs and songs in general. I'm not just gonna pick on rap, but bad music does play an influence. Peer pressure. There's a thing in school where like if you're academically achieving, they called you names like
you're a
Nerd
you're
and
geek
geek.
and
You're a
nerds
geek,
and
you're a nerd.
negative things,
Square.
and you ain't supposed to
Square
be. Why
back in
you
my day.
speaking like that? All proper
Acting
and
white.
stuff. Acting white,
Oh,
and all
yeah.
of these negative, and that peer pressure, made the kids not want to go to school. So we need to reverse that. And make it a good thing to learn, to get these kids. So peer pressure does go a long way. It'd be good if we can find a way to flip that scenario, that mindset to where it's bad to learn.
It's square
nowadays,
to
good
learn.
Lord, you can't. They don't even speak English nowadays. You know
Ebonics.
what I'm saying? I don't know what you're talking about. And if I'm sick and I go to a doctor, I want my doctor speaking English. How are you, Mr. Jet? What's the problem? Where does it hurt? Speak so I can tell him, hey, here. Not that, this whatever they
Well,
talk about. Urbonics.
the electric of
It's not even urbonics.
the idea of texting is killing us. With all these, they're not even acronyms. They just letters put together.
Yes.
TBI,
Yes.
OEA. What the heck are you talking about? And
Well, what's interesting too about this texting culture, because that's what it is, a texting culture. We have students now who are submitting papers.
Oh yeah, I read that.
They are submitting, like a teacher gives a class,
An assignment.
Go research whatever. okay? Whatever the topic is, go research it and give me a 2-page essay on that topic. When the students are turning the papers in, they are turning the papers in with texting words
Yeah.
or texting letters or texting acronyms. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
And then they're upset when the teacher gives it back with an F or whatever the teacher grade gives them. They get upset and they want to beat the teacher up after school and all kind of stuff.
Well, the key is, we used to tell our grandkids when they was growing up in school, the key is no matter how right, you could write it on the paper and it's right. If the teacher can't understand it, it's wrong.
Hello.
So in other words, we are finished talking about your assignment. Now we're going to talk about grammar. You know what I mean? So if they can't understand it, it's wrong. They got to mark you wrong.
Yes. And the thing is, you know, I know when I was in school and I was for a while in the doctor's program, I mean, I've done all the papers, I've done research. I did research last night preparing for today's show on the Department of Education's website. What the scripted notes that you write to yourself, that's what you write to yourself.
Right.
When you get ready to submit that and turn it in, and I'll be the first to say that sometimes I spell words wrong, because I've done it on Facebook and I go back, I go, oh gosh, I had 5 words spelled wrong there, and how do I go back and get that fixed, you know? So you have to take some pride, first of all, in your work, and then secondly, you have to realize that what you do for yourself is not necessarily what you do when you put it out in public and when you submit it to a teacher. You know, you have to apply the rules that exist.
Well, you know, in my line of work with the NAACP, being in the position I'm in, I send letters out and receive letters all the time. And I'm not going to lie to you, English was my worst subject. I was pretty good in school.
It's interesting.
I was a B- student in school, basically all through school. But English was the one that kicked my butt. I was a math guy. I love math. I did enough English to get by. But then graduating, I meet people. I met someone, and her best subject was English.
Okay.
See, what in the heck is this you trying to tell me? So everything I send out.
You ride past her?
She has the final say. So what happened is I got to go through it again, and I got to let the spell checker get it.
Yes.
And the spell checker is only good for what the computer system put it in there.
That's right.
Okay, it may not catch the word you're talking about.
Right, it doesn't.
And the spell checker has caught up with us because it would say a word is right, but the grammar is wrong. And now, you know, the last 9-10 years they put the grammar and grammar in.
Okay.
Right? And then I said, can you read this? And then, well, I wouldn't have said this. I said, well, that's what I want to say. So how do I make it right? You know, 15 ways of Sunday before it goes out.
I want to add this to, you know, one of my biggest problems is that when I was growing up, I always thought that I was going to be young. And overnight, if you're lucky, you'll become my age, which is not that, I'm not that old anyway, but anyway.
I'm the oldest one segment.
We're not even.
But I think that these kids nowadays think they have a whole lifetime to get it together, and you don't.
Right.
Because next week, any day or whatever the case may be, hopefully, that.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But don't think that you have tomorrow, don't think that tomorrow's promise, or you can just fall back, slack back, and pick it up next week or pick it up next year, because it's not guaranteed. Right now, think about this as your last day, get on board, and start acting like you're grown, because you say you're grown when you get 12, 13, you're already saying you're grown. Yeah. So now, I mean, since you said, you know.
Be responsible.
Yeah. And this is my spell checker here, because she checks me in. Yeah, you know,
you have to, man.
Yeah,
You know,
thank God for
notes,
her. You know,
sure.
Yeah.
You take your notes and then you go over your notes and you have somebody to check with them. And the kids nowadays, they have that spell check on the computer right there, so it doesn't get any easier than that. But you know, I'll tell you, Brett, I want to commend you and thank you for having this discussion and opening this discussion and keeping the light shine on our kids, because if we don't come together behind educating our kids, I don't know what in the world we're going to do. What are we going to fall behind on? You know, we're so used to being divided and taking on all these different things in these different areas from these different communities. I think if this is the one issue that all of the community needs to come behind, and